Hey there, and welcome back to my channel where we discuss all things self-improvement, mind, and body. Today we're going to be discussing Myers Briggs. We're going to be talking about why you feel like your results may not fit you. Because maybe this has happened to you where you and your friends are going over the results, everybody's reading their description of one of those 16 types, and everyone else feels like their type fits them so well that it's almost creepy. But then maybe you're thinking, I don't know, this doesn't fit me that well. I mean, some parts of it do, some parts of it don't. We're going to be going into some reasons today why that can happen. First, we're going to just get really briefly into what are these different types and what are they measuring. So the first one is introverted and extroverted. So that's measuring where you get your energy. So do you feel more restored and feel you're gaining energy from being alone, or do you feel that way around other people? The next one is intuitive versus sensing, which is measuring if you prefer things more abstract and theoretical and future-based, like possibilities, that's intuitive, or if you prefer things more grounded, here, now, what's actually happening, that's sensors. The next one is thinking versus feeling, which is if you prefer to make decisions with your head, more logic-based, or your heart, more emotions-based. And finally, judging and perceiving, which is if you prefer to have things planned out or if you prefer to be a little bit more spontaneous. So none of these are good or bad or better or worse, despite what anyone may have led you to believe. They're just different ways of processing information, making decisions, where you get your energy, how you plan your day, all sorts of things. It can just show you all sorts of personality types, but there are limitations, and we're going to get into some of those limitations in this video. All right, so reason number one is maybe you took the test and you answered how you are in some situations, but not others. Really what the test is measuring is how you are in most situations or in an average situation. So for example, let's say you generally love being around people, but at parties is one situation where you're very uncomfortable. So you answered stuff about feeling very uncomfortable in social situations, and you repeatedly answer that over and over again. But in 90% of other situations, you feel very energized by being around others. So that could be one reason why your tests are skewed, is because you didn't answer how you usually are in average environments. And furthermore, going off of that, kind of like a subsection of this, is some people answer the questions based on how they want to be, not based on how they are. So like speaking of introversion and extroversion, unfortunately, a lot of our culture leads people to believe that extroverts are more social or have an easier time with people, but really it's measuring where they get their energy, and it's more like how are they directing their energy and other things. So there is no good or bad or better or worse on this test, but like, especially even when it comes to things like judging or perceiving, some people might hear the word judging and think that that's bad. Really, that's measuring whether you want things more decided or more open-ended, whether you want things planned or whether you want to take things as they come. So it's not judging as in judging another person, it's more judging as in making a judgment or making a decision as to the way you want things to be, versus saying, yeah, let's just take it as it comes and see what happens. All right, so those are two in one for reasons that you feel like your type might not fit you. And I actually think the number one reason people feel like their type doesn't fit is that it's on a spectrum. So for example, you may have noticed with some tests, it'll say 78% extroverted or 61% introverted, because nobody is generally 100% of any of these. You're not a 100% sensor or something like that. You might be a 49% sensor. And if that's the case, that means you're only 51% intuitive, which means that you're barely on that side. If all of your types are not very pronounced, that means that you're going to feel like your type doesn't fit you. Like if you're only like 51% or 55% either way as you go down the different, for those 4 letters, you're going to feel like it doesn't fit. Versus somebody that had scores in the 80s, 70s, or 90s for these different metrics, they're going to, like, those are pretty exaggerated scores. So they're going to feel like, wow, this type really fits me. Because it's on a spectrum, it doesn't account for that when it's giving you those 4 letters. It's a little bit more black and white, and it's not allowing for that spectrum. And the last reason you feel your type may not fit you is cognitive functions or cognitive stacks, which are so fun and so helpful. And actually, the reason I like Myers Briggs, I think a lot of people simplify it and they just think of it as like a fun test, but a lot of these personality tests can be used as tools to know yourself, to better yourself, to understand how you work in the world, and they can really be applicable. They're not just theory, like that for theory's sake. They can really, you can take them and apply them to your life to improve. All right, so cognitive functions or cognitive stacks can get a bit confusing, so I'm actually going to link a link down below that explains it better than I'm going to here, but I just want to give you a really brief description of it. They are basically describing the way you prefer to operate in the world, or your preferred functions. So for example, extroverted sensing, think about it. You put those two things together. You have extroversion, so out there, not in here. And then you have sensing, meaning sensory environment. So I have a friend that leads with extroverted sensing, and I took him to a coffee shop, and I think he literally touched everything on the walls. It was one of those places that had like coffee cups or different like memorabilia or different things on the walls, and he just started touching things. If somebody leads with introverted thinking, they're going to be a very deep thinker, but it's going to be more directed inward, like their theories, maybe reprocessing something. Somebody that leads with extroverted feeling is going to be very aware of what everybody is feeling around them. So you have an order of a way you like to use these different skills. And so some of them will be very high and some of them will be very low, meaning you do not like to use that as a way you're going about the world. So that's how you know what your type is, honestly, by looking at the cognitive stacks and knowing how you process information, how you make decisions, how you gain your energy. A lot of these things are also just about knowing ourselves, and this can evolve and change in different seasons of your life. If you took this during a time where maybe you were a sales representative somewhere, you were having to be very extroverted, maybe you'd get extrovert. And then if you took it when you're working as a researcher, like 5 years later, maybe you'd get introvert because you're constantly more on your own during that time. A friend of mine who I know is an extrovert took this during COVID. He's been working at home for the past 6 months now. And he got introverted. I know that's not him, but he's been by himself the past 6 months. So I wonder if that like kind of skewed his perception of himself. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. If you guys have any questions, comment below, subscribe for more videos, and hit that notification bell so you know, and see you guys next week.